Welcome to the Tyler Werner Show, discussing all the latest in Philadelphia sports.
I just felt comfortable, confident and comfortable.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out!
Man, I love y'all. I hope y'all keep trusting the process.
But did they score?
And now, here's Tyler Werner.
Spring is in the air. Philly sports is definitely in the air with the return of Philadelphia Phillies baseball last week and perhaps the return of a winning Philadelphia Phillies organization. A little bit of a loss yesterday, an unfortunate one against the Washington Nationals to end their 4-game winning streak that they had going, but nevertheless, a very exciting start to the 2019 baseball season for the Philadelphia Phillies. And this is, it's all the essence of the Bryce Harper signing and this young Phillies team that certainly with the addition of Bryce Harper, you're really starting to see the potential for this Phillies team to slug their way not only to just the playoffs, but perhaps more in the playoffs. And it's going to be an interesting battle for the NL East this year as we are seeing as the Phillies split a 2-game series with the Nationals. But that first game in particular where Bryce Harper just goes down there and the bat flip and the home run, just that win was, I mean, it was exciting. You're seeing a Phillies team sort of like the Eagles of 2017, an exciting team out there having fun and coming up with whatever wacky celebrations you want, but just out there having fun and thus far winning. They start the season 4-1, and Bryce Harper two home runs against the Braves in that series sweep of Atlanta to start off the season. I mean, it's exciting. You have that. You have the Sixers, who they got, of course, they got a tough game Thursday night against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Take them, but it looks like pretty much the Sixers are locked into the 3rd seed again, and going to take on either the Nets or the Timberwolves, or whoever they're going to. There's any one of those 3 teams that are in a close 6, 7, 8 seed race right now that it looks like the Sixers will be facing. I guess it could be the Pistons as well. I don't know. But regardless, the Sixers should be, barring something very strange, they should have the 3rd seed over the Boston Celtics, who will likely be the 4th seed by the looks of it. And with that, you'd hope that the Sixers can then maybe in the second round beat the Raptors with this retooled lineup, and we'll go from there. I mean, the Sixers have had a couple of disappointing losses after being hot and beating some great teams, without a doubt. But it happens. They're not going to win it. They're not going to win every game, especially when they don't have the full ensemble out there, as we see at times. Some players getting some rest before the playoffs and yada yada. But between that, some excitement out of Eagles free agency. I'd say it's a solid free agency period. There's still some holes to fill. Without question, of course, one of the latest moves, Jordan Howard, running back from the Chicago Bears. Kind of a volume carrier for the Bears the last few years. Who actually, since entering the league, is 3rd in overall rushing, although last year he didn't quite hit 1,000 yards on 250 attempts and averaged 3.7 yards per carry. overall yardage-wise, somewhat of a decline over his first 3 seasons here. I don't know, maybe wasn't a fit for Matt Nagy's offense in Chicago. Nevertheless, it's going to be, well, I guess what looks like the number one back here for the Philadelphia Eagles for the time being. 24 years old, going on 25. So maybe marginally makes the position better for the Eagles. Maybe gives them a more surefire number one guy over Jay Ajayi, who's been riddled with injuries, and Corey Clement, who was a little banged up last year, and maybe not a number one back. So Sproles, you don't know if he's going to come back, and of course he's not your number one back at this point, anyways. So, but we got a lot of excitement. The Flyers, things kind of fizzled for them. They showed some signs of life when they were winning a lot of games. Later February, early March, but they couldn't put it together. It was a transitional year for them. Front office changes, coaching changes, some new players in the mix, and trading Wayne Simmons. So it was kind of a wacky year for Flyers hockey, and certainly it didn't help the way they started the season towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference. So, but other than that, it's going to be an exciting spring and summer, and that's because, again, the signing of Bryce Harper. Some people, it's too much money or what? I don't know. They don't want to pay that. I mean, it's not your money. It's not. And now look at the excitement that's coming out of the Phillies organization. I mean, this is a team that for now, close to a decade. It's been several years since we've had really a very exciting summer and spring of Phillies baseball to look forward to. I mean, the first time it's hard to believe that they hadn't started 4-0 since 1915. That was the last time. I mean, you would have thought somewhere along the line, out of those 102 or 3 seasons, you would have thought somewhere along the line, maybe the Phillies would have started 4-0 in that century, but they hadn't, and for the first time since then, Phillies start 4-0. They're off to a good start. They're going to take on, they got the Washington Nationals again next week, but this week they got the Timberwolves. This weekend, I should say, they got the Timberwolves Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Again, a disappointing loss yesterday against the Nationals, 8-9, kind of frittered, on a walk of all times for of all times, bottom of the ninth to unfortunately end the game where the Phillies were down, 6-2 early in that game, and then come back towards the end, 4 runs to take the lead, heading to the bottom of the 8th. But you can't win them all, I guess is what applies here. But again, this is a Phillies team that is, between Bryce Harper and Rhys Hoskins, this lineup, I mean, it's pretty strong. They are putting up the runs. Bryce Harper, I mean, he's batting .500 so far. I know it's not going to be the case all season, but I mean, you saw that opening series against the Braves. I mean, we knew Bryce Harper when signing and even before signing, he has had his way hitting homers at Citizens Bank Park. And, there he is. Hitting it like way into the upper deck, hitting homers, and not surprised. Right out of the gate against the Braves, games 2 and 3, a homer in each of them. And it's, it's a sign of things to come, I think. I can get used to that. This is in like they say on the broadcast. This is the listen to this excitement. We haven't heard this excitement in some time at Phillies games. Bryce Harper comes up to bat, and it's exciting. Baseball is back here in Philadelphia. It's good to say. You got that. You got the Sixers as well, kind of carrying you into another year of NBA playoffs again. Can the Sixers go a little further than maybe they did last year? That was a disappointing exit against the Boston Celtics. But the Sixers, not too long ago, they were able to pull out a win against the Celtics, a team that they have historically, last couple of years, struggled against, and earlier this season. And I think, again, with the retold lineup that maybe is needing some time to gel. It's definitely a Sixers team that is capable of achieving more than what they achieved last year. And I know that, the Coach Brett Brown critics are out there. And when the Sixers lose a game that you think they should win, it falls a lot on the coach. And Coach Brett Brown gets a lot to blame. And if the Sixers don't achieve more than what they did last year, I'd say minimum, if they don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals, they don't kind of take a next step like that, then the coach may end up having to go. Hopefully this lineup too, this kind of star lineup with obviously the core of Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, but Tobias Harris and of course Jimmy Butler. Hopefully can stay together. Hopefully, Butler wouldn't want to walk after the season. I think it's one of these things too. Butler, a guy who's maybe not as used to playing with star players, with kind of with a fuller lineup that what the Sixers had than what Jimmy Butler was playing with. Maybe it's something that maybe you're not quite used to. Maybe at times Jimmy Butler, kind of wants to be the star guy and isn't sure how to play, isn't sure how not to be. But I'm hoping, it's one of those things you got to hope that winning cures everything and that this Sixers team can rise in the Eastern Conference and maybe, not this season, maybe next season, pull off that NBA championship title. So we're going to hit a first break here on the Tyler Werner Show. Now we're in the month of April already. Like, time is just flying by. Baseball is back. The weather's getting warmer. Spring is in the air. And so are Philadelphia sports. We're discussing all that and more right here on the Tyler Werner Show. Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show. Send your comments. We'll discuss more on the other side right here on the program. Stay tuned for more after this.
It's no big news flash that many people, you included, eat as a way to medicate themselves. You can choose to worry about it or not. You can choose to panic about your situation or not. It's clear what you must do in order to make important changes.
5 letters here. R-E-L-A-X. Relax. We're going to be okay.
In order for you ever to effectively figure out and map how to get to where you want to go, you have to first know exactly where you are starting.
R-E-L-A-X. Relax.
You have to be willing to change what you're doing. You can change your behavior.
Investigators are calling it the heist of the century. The grand robbery of Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs, committed by some apparently hungry NFL officials who love their balls.
When I came in Monday morning, I was shocked to learn of the news reports about the balls and the process that happened between when they were prepared and went to the officials and went to the game.
As shocked as Belichick was of the news, perhaps Brady, the last man out of the kitchen on that Sunday night, was even more shocked to hear of the news of the theft.
I have a process that I go through. It's the same process that I always go through. When I felt them, they were perfect. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone touching those. I would zip those things up and lock them away, and that's what I thought I was doing.
As Brady and Belichick upped the ante on their ball security, you'll just have to pick up a pack of their meatballs the next time you hit the grocery store and enjoy just how perfect these balls really are.
Tom's personal preferences on his ball security are something that he can talk about in much better detail than I could possibly provide.
Right back here on the Tyler Werner Show. Phillies day off today, but of course Sixers basketball later tonight against the Eastern Conference 1 seed. And, you know, maybe probably where the Eastern Conference might end up going through. And, of course, this weekend, the Phillies taking on the Minnesota Twins in a 3-game series at Citizens Bank Park. Twins off to a 4-1 start as well this season, currently leading the AL Central. Phillies off to their 4-1 start after just frittering away in the bottom of the ninth that second game against the Nationals, unfortunately. But, you know, you wipe off the dirt, you move on, and hopefully maybe the Phillies slug their way to another series win. If not another sweep, that'd be something else. But no, they're taking on a Twins team that is also off to a 4-1 start. Of course, in the NL East, the Mets off to a 5-1 start as well. So, you know, the Mets look, you know, there might be some tough competition this season. The Braves, of course, they won 2 over the Cubs after starting the season 0-3 at the hands of that series sweep by the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Marlins off to a 2-5 start in the NL East thus far. NL Central, the Brewers off to a 6-1 start. In the NL West, the Dodgers off to a 5-2 start. So, but again, I mean, we've seen this Phillies offense and the way Bryce Harper's hitting. I mean, I think he got walked 3 times against the Nationals yesterday. I mean, it's like, in that other game. I mean, in the series against the Braves. I mean, they were walking guys like left and. I mean, it's Phillies. I mean, it's a team that it's gonna be tough to pitch against, especially Citizens Bank Park, where even when Bryce Harper's on the Nationals, he's had his way against against the Phillies when he was on the National. And now, he's going to be playing half of his games at Citizens Bank Park. So it's an exciting time for Phillies baseball, an exciting time for Philadelphia sports. Sixers, of course, signing center, making the Greg Monroe signing official. I'm going to give a little bit of depth to the Sixers roster at center. It's going to wear number 55 for the Sixers. As the Sixers, again, just a few games left until the playoffs. And by the looks of things, again, between the Brooklyn, you have the Sixers in there with the Celtics, the Bucks. Bucks probably gonna win. Well, see what happens against the Sixers, but very well might win 60 games. The Raptors second. You got the Sixers at third, about on par with last year, but of course more recently now this kind of retooled lineup made a few changes over the course of the season early on, of course with the addition of Jimmy Butler, and then before the trade deadline, Tobias Harris and a few of the other transactions that they made. The Celtics in fourth, 2.5 games as of the recording of this edition of the Tyler Werner Show, 2.5 games behind the Sixers. Not to mention the Sixers have played one fewer game. See what happens against the Bucks tonight. And then the Pacers, also same record as the Celtics. Those two teams looks like they're kind of a lock to face each other in the opening round of the playoffs. So yeah, the Pistons at a 500 record currently. The Nets 1 game under 500. The Magic 1 game under 500. So it's going to be, it's take your pick. The Sixers are going to take on one of those 3 teams in the first round of the NBA playoffs, as the way things look now. And then the Raptors, most likely that's who the Sixers would face in the next round of the playoffs, which, given a 7-game series, it's certainly in this new lineup, the Sixers are very well capable of defeating in a 7-game series. And then most likely that leaves you against the Bucks, which is no easy test. Of course, the Sixers maybe not going to be at full strength tonight against the Bucks, the full lineup. I don't know. But for the most part, right now things are fairly locked in, at least for the Sixers in the playoffs, and just about with the Bucks probably locking up that 1 seed. So that's really where it kind of stands right now. I want to see what I want to see what happens in the playoffs. Some of these games down the stretch here, like the other night with the Sixers, disappointing loss against the Hawks. But again, ultimately a game where the Sixers, no Embiid in there. Not some of these games not playing with the full complement of players, and you saw that the other night as well with the Sixers when they lost to the Mavericks, and Embiid also didn't play in that game. Jimmy Butler didn't suit up in that game, so I don't know, but that's where the Sixers kind of stand right now. I wanted to get in more. I touched on it briefly in the first segment of the show. Jordan Howard, and because especially that first year he had with the Bears, 2016. Where 252 carries, ran for 13, a 5.2 yards per carry average, 6 touchdowns, only 6 touchdowns, but, still an impressive stat line that first year. And just knowing that the running back position seemed unaddressed for the Eagles at that juncture. When that signing, that deal, not signing, I guess it was a trade. Trade for what, a fifth round draft pick? Was a 5th or 6th? I don't know. Like, a lot of people looked at that and thought, like, what deal can't Howie make here? Like, they trade him a pack of Staples and a roll of packing tape for a star player. I mean, what else? What deal can't Howie do here? I don't know. A lot of people looked at that and thought like, what? Like what? The Bears shooting themselves in the foot. He's on his last year of his rookie deal too, so he's not really taking up any cap space, any significant cap space at all. So you kind of look into it a little more. And I'm not putting down the deal at all, because last year, let's face it, the Eagles' running game it suffered compared to 2017 when, they had LeGarrette Blount, who was, you wondered what he had left. And he still showed he had some gas left in the tank. And between him, Corey Clement, they had Jay Ajayi in the mix. I mean, when they made the trade for him, things looked pretty good. Things looked pretty good on paper. And things played out pretty well that year with the running game. I mean, they went on to win the Super Bowl. And they didn't have they kind of had a running back by committee with that squad. But it was a little more defined than last year. I mean, Sproles showed some stuff at the end of the year. Corey Clement was a little banged up. Jay Ajayi obviously banged up. Josh Adams, he had some decent games, but towards the end of the season, it seemed like they couldn't rely on him, or they were hesitant to really get him in there in important games and get him carried. So they didn't really have much of a defined running game. Where now they're bringing in Jordan Howard, who, here we go, his first 3 seasons here. 250 carries last year, 276 the year, 252 the year before. So he's been fairly consistent. Thus far, he's been healthy. He's still young. He's only going on 25. He can be this volume runner. You can feed the ball in him when you want to run down the clock. He's not, he's only in his career had 72 receptions, and he hasn't had much yardage on that note. So he's not much of a pass catching back. And I guess if you look at a lot of his highlights, he only had last year, I believe it was 18 carries on the season for 10 or more yards. So I don't know, he's kind of, I guess you look at the production over the last few years, his first 3 seasons, and again, 2016, 5.2 yards per carry in his rookie year. 2017, down to 4.1. And then last season, down to 3.7 yards per carry. Although he had 9 touchdowns 2018, 2017, as opposed to 6 in his rookie year of 2016. Overall yards, 2016, 1,313 yards. Down almost 200 in 2017 to 1,122 yards. And then down almost another 200 last year at 935 yards. 252 carries 2016, 276 carries 2017, 250 last year. So I don't know. You see, that's not to say he's gonna be the. I would think that the Eagles bringing him here, fresh start in a newer offense with Carson Wentz, speedy Deshaun Jackson, who he's not gonna be the star player here, the star receiver that maybe you hope, but nevertheless, he's still got speed. He's gonna stretch the field. I mean, he's a guy that, just tell him to run a streak route any given play and stretch the field, even if you don't throw the ball to him. That's kind of what they were hoping Mike Wallace could be last year, but he was all banged up. Something that they were kind of missing last year. So, yeah, I mean, Jack. I mean, he's not quite a full-time receiver that's probably going to be an every down receiver. I don't know. But nevertheless, I think a good signing. I don't buy into the whole, it's cancer in the locker room thing. I mean, especially at this point in his career, well in his 30s. Well, maybe not well in his, but, a few years into his 30s at this point in his career. I mean, I think by this point he's a little more matured, and he kind of knows his place on this team. He wanted to come back here and play in the midnight green. And, I mean, can you blame him? Coming from Tampa Bay, and before that, a Washington Redskins team that really ultimately was good for, a playoff appearance, and that was pretty much it. So I got to think. There's still some work to be done in the draft, and then they might want to draft a running back yet. And they do need maybe a little more help at inside linebacker. Of course, Jordan Hicks, now gone. But nevertheless, an Eagles team that I'm expecting. I am expecting to win the division this year. I mean, and I know Golden Tate went to the Giants. Good for him. Hope you enjoyed your half a season here in Philly. If you didn't want to play here, I don't know. You want to play for the Giants, who, I mean, it's one of those things you gotta feel bad when now Odell Beckham off to the Browns, and it didn't look like they got full. It looked like they wanted. I don't know. Looks like they might have another year of Eli Manning yet, as the looks of it. I don't know. But, again, this is an Eagles team that should win this division this year. They should be. Carson Wentz should be at full strength here. All right, and that's not to say Nick Foles, wasn't a great guy here for the locker room, wasn't a great team player. I mean, I can't say enough positive things about Nick Foles in that regard. But Carson Wentz, I mean, doesn't have that looking over his shoulder now for this team. So if that was a monkey on his back, I mean, this is Carson's team. The debate's over. Nick Foles isn't here anymore. It's Carson's team. Carson's got to perform. And again, there are stats. Again, you can make the case. You look at some of the stats, his stat line last year, and in many regards, I mean, it was on par with 2017, if not better in some ways. But there was, you kind of saw some things missing to his game that you hope maybe come back. You hope you see this upcoming season. A more limber Carson Wentz. And one that, when the game is on the line, that Carson Wentz is going to be able to engineer drives down the field, make the throws, make plays that he needs to make, that you want your franchise quarterback to make. That you want to, lead your team to victory. And especially with unfortunately, a quarterback that has no playoff experience technically yet. And he's had some big games, especially in 2017, like against the Rams, that he didn't finish, but where he, made some things happen that he needed to make happen, and bada bing, bada boom, I guess. But again, there's some limitation, some things we haven't even seen yet. We haven't seen Carson Wentz in the playoffs. Here it is, year 4. Lead this team to a division title. I mean, come on, spare me. And for whatever reason, I mean, we haven't seen repeat division champs for the NFC East since, I guess it was the Eagles in the early, the early 2000s. And spare me that the Cowboys would win it again this year. I mean, come on. And the Giants, I mean, again, Saquon Barkley, I kind of feel bad for the guy because, I mean, if anything, that might be a team that's getting worse. I don't think they got much better, if anything. They don't have Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, they got Golden Tate, but And the Redskins, So this is an Eagles team that should take this division back. I don't look too much into the whole scheduling thing quite, because things change left and right. But supposedly there was an article that came out yesterday saying how the Eagles have one of the easiest schedules in the upcoming season. But I don't know. I mean, we'll wait and see when the schedule comes out. As usual, we'll go down. We'll pick the games in a preliminary fashion, even though we'll be several months away from the regular season. And then, the season, and then we'll pick the games again like we always do. But regardless of how their schedule is going to end up getting laid out, on paper, I think this is an Eagles team that should win this division this year. Hopefully have a little bit better of a showing than what they did last year, and shouldn't have to rely on a miraculous stretch down the run to ultimately get in the playoffs like they did. And that was with Nick Foles, of course, but they shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to rely on that as Eagles fans this season. I mean, it's not. Again, it's not a perfect Eagles team by any means. I don't know. Are they on? They going to be on the level of the Saints on paper, or are they going to be on the level of the Rams on paper? Who, I mean, you saw in that big game. I mean, you saw them kind of curl up a little bit. I don't know. But without question, this is an Eagles team that should win this division. It's not going to be the division. It shouldn't be any better than it was last year, really. the Cowboys, I mean, we'll see if they win 10 games again. I don't know. But nevertheless, the Jordan Howard signing, it's gotten some praise, and then it's gotten some mixed reviews. And I'm a guy that's gonna be, well, let's wait and see. I mean, they got him for like dirt cheap. For one, I mean, maybe next year he gets paid more, obviously, because then his contract will be up. But his progress has declined a little bit. Maybe he wasn't as good of a fit in the Bears offense last year, which hurt. But part of that might be because maybe he's just not. He's not a Saquon Barkley, or he's not an Ezekiel Elliott. For that reason, I mean, if you're great, that shouldn't be an issue. Fitting an offense. That shouldn't really be a question. But if you're good, which Jordan Howard has shown, at least in his rookie year, maybe a little bit, maybe his second, that he can certainly be a good running back that you can hand the ball off to 15 times or more a game. Well, if Howie has faith, the front office, they have faith that he can be good. All right, good. He can be serviceable and productive. Maybe not a killer at the position, but can be fairly productive. Can, I guess, get the job done. Satisfactory.
Trust the process.
I'll kind of trust, because the Eagles have done Howie's done some good things in recent years overall. So, and does it make him better off at than where things have been standing? Yeah, I can say that. So I'm not going to go crazy over this signing and say, oh, it was like, oh man, look out. But at the same time, I'll be, see how it plays out. It should help him marginally, and maybe the Eagles draft at some point. Maybe they draft a stud running back this year. I don't know. Maybe they're going to go inside linebacker. It's another draft that seems heavy with defensive linemen. I don't know. But regardless, I'll wait and see. I'm fairly in favor with the signing. What say you? It's the Tyler Werner Show, talking Philadelphia sports here. Kind of overall the free agency excitement. A few weeks away until the draft, folks. And then we'll get more answers. And then, of course, the schedule will come out, and we'll all go crazy about that. Well, maybe not all. We'll take a look, and we'll make our preliminary game picks. And then later on, like I said, see what happens, see who gets injured in the off season. Any other transactions are made, signings are made, major draft additions, and things may get reassessed again. So that's where things stand with the Philadelphia Eagles right now. It seems, I give the free agency period a kind of a thumbs up for the Philadelphia Eagles. A couple losses here and there, but see if maybe long-term solutions can be made in the draft. It's the Tyler Werner Show. We'll come back with more to wrap up the show, this first edition in April. After this break, stay tuned for more after this.
Number one box office attraction, number one WWE superstar, multi-time WWE champion, Brock Lesnar.
Time to revamp your office space, eh? Looking for an interior decorator? Look no further than Brock Lesnar.
Now that's the way a real man uses a sledgehammer.
Out with the old, in with the new. Give Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman a call.
Mr. Lesnar, you're the future of interior decorators. Ellie, we're done.
Hi there, I'm Hank Hill. Well, I'd like to tell you what Strickland can do to meet your energy needs. You see, at Strickland, the customer comes first. It's kind of interesting. The word customer begins with CU. Well, we don't see you as just another sale, but as a member of our team. I thought you might enjoy 7.5 gallons of pure premium propane. Strickland Propane, the customer comes first.
Oh God, ease our suffering in this our moment of great despair.
Are you and your family in a time of suffering? Or maybe you're suffering alone? Maybe you just don't know where to turn to, but now you have an answer.
You give God some of you, and He'll give some of Himself.
The wise words of Tilton Talk will guide you on your way. Every weekday from 10 to 11 a.m. on Repentance Network.
Oh, hallelujah! Come on, everybody shout with me. Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
Tune in to Tilton Talk every weekday morning from 10 to 11 a.m. and soon you'll be shouting hallelujah.
He's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ask or think.
Welcome back to the Tyler Werner Show. Right here on the YouTube channel, as always. Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show. Are you in the Philly sports? Are you not excited? You're not excited about where this spring is headed with the Philadelphia Phillies, going to carry you through the summer with some good baseball, with some hitting. And, of course, the Sixers, hopefully. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, because I personally will be, if they don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals and at least compete, because we've seen, I mean the Sixers' last matchup against the Bucks, if I'm not mistaken, they beat the Bucks. We'll see what happens with this Thursday night matchup against the Bucks tonight. But ultimately, what's going to matter is the playoffs, which, again, things are kind of settled in. Kind of settled for the most part with the playoffs as of now, as I kind of just talked about earlier. But, it's going to, like last year, it was kind of, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like gravy in a way what the Sixers were able to. I mean, you had some questions throughout a lot of last season, but then towards the end, you really started to see them catch on late last season and put together a run that got them to the third seed in the playoffs. And that was with, Joel Embiid. He kind of had his face banged up last year, and kind of break out that mask for a little bit. And you saw, and then unfortunately you saw him really struggle against against Boston, which kind of continued into this season. But then more recently, you saw the Sixers with this new lineup able to take care of the Boston Celtics. You've seen them over time kind of perform better. I mean, this is it's been an interesting Sixers season with, the whole Markelle Fultz bogus, I want to call it, which ultimately ended up in him just getting traded away and ultimately kind of being like almost in some ways reminiscent of an Andrew Bynum situation several years ago, which kind of ultimately led the Sixers into the process around that time. And again, you saw the addition of Jimmy Butler. That was another phase, kind of entered into another phase of this. And then not too long ago, of course, before the trade deadline, the moves the Sixers made then, kind of another phase of the season, which kind of leads us to now and to a year where the Sixers are entering as a third seed, but certainly a third seed, I think, at least with more expectation than last year. It was kind of like, all right, well, the Sixers, they should. Yeah, I mean, kind of regardless of what they do here, I mean, it's kind of been a successful season. Where previously the Sixers were, only winning in the 20s the year before. Now you're seeing things kind of come to fruition a little bit here. And now this is a year, I think, where the Sixers kind of have to assert themselves. This lineup with Tobias Harris now and with Jimmy Butler. And maybe with a little bit deeper of a bench than what they had before. This is where the Sixers need to kind of show the East maybe who's boss. And again, it's tough in a 7-game series, maybe against the Bucks in the Eastern Conference, but I'm hoping the Sixers can have their way against the Toronto Raptors in the second round. Again, Sixers are third seed here against those two teams who are superior in the standings, but the Sixers, put it this way, I'd be curious if the Sixers started the season with this lineup, maybe how things would be. They had their ups and downs certainly early in the season, and given this lineup more time to gel and come together into its own, I'd be a little curious to see how this team would have fared. Maybe they'd end up as a 1 seed. I don't know. We'll see how things play out in the playoffs. That's what they're for. Again, it's a Sixers team that I have higher expectations for in the playoffs than last year, and that everyone I'm assuming does. Brett Brown, coaching wise, I mean, if Sixers don't go very far, I mean, people are going to be calling for his head. That's for sure. Be calling for his firing, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals with this lineup. I mean, it's kind of hard not to. And I like Brett Brown. I'm not one of these guys that's always first to jump at one of these losses. It's like, oh, Brett Brown, fire Brett Brown or what. I haven't been one of those guys for sure here throughout his tenure, especially recently, when the Sixers certainly have less excuses. Less excuses not to win some of these games. So, I don't know. I mean, kind of holding out, kind of waiting until the playoffs, really, at this point. But nevertheless, big game for the Sixers against the Bucks. What else can you say? And again, a big weekend, big week ahead in Phillies baseball, as they got a series against the Twins, who, again, they've also started the season pretty well in their first couple of series. But the Phillies at home faring rather well against the Atlanta Braves, hitting rather well in general thus far. But, I mean, hey, if Bryce Harper gives you 2 homers in that first series, I mean, he's hitting .500. And first 5 games, he's got 3 home runs. Things are looking pretty good thus far, gotta say. So, yeah, I mean, it's between them, the Mets turning things around, the Padres, Phillies among the teams turning, top turnaround teams perhaps this season. It's going to be an interesting battle with the division with the Mets and the Nationals, kind of as the Nationals, I mean, haven't started off as well as they would have hoped to, but that's going to be a great rivalry this season and going forward with the Phillies and the Nationals. But, you throw the Mets there in the equation, vying for this division, and it's got to be an interesting season ahead for Phillies baseball. And who's to say? I mean, the way the Phillies have started off, at least hitting well, I mean, again, it was unfortunate where the pitching did not, really let the Phillies down in that game yesterday against the Nationals to cough up a 9-8 loss, unfortunately, in the bottom of the ninth. Other than that, I mean, if the Phillies can get it together a little bit more defensively and pitching-wise, then who's to say this Phillies team can't show up even in the World Series this year? I don't know. But I'm liking where things are going with this. I mean, how can't you? It's going to be an exciting summer. An exciting spring with the Sixers and the Phillies. And an exciting summer with the Phillies carrying things until football season makes its return. And then, I mean, again, who's to say the Phillies can't make a deep playoff run this year? Then you have that and Eagles football in the fall making way before Sixers basketball would return, and maybe a Flyers season with some new energy in it after a Flyers season with many changes throughout the course of the season. That's going to wrap things up for this edition of the Tyler Werner Show. Again, excitement is in the air. Spring is in the air. The month of April. Here we go. Weather's been warming up. It's going to be looks like Friday for the Phillies. Looks like this matchup against the Twins, the first one anyways, looks like some rainy, kind of dreary weather. I think with a high around, 48 or 50 at least. Eastern Lancaster County area. I guess they're calling for like mid to upper 50s Friday. But then things kind of warming up Saturday into Sunday, highs getting up into the upper 60s, and Tuesday with a high of 70, and the lows also making their way up into the 50s early next week. So, things are, should be overall some decent baseball weather, at least more so Saturday and Sunday for Phillies baseball. So look forward to that. Some more spring-like weather, certainly, as we have moved into the month of April. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Go Phillies. Go Sixers. And we'll talk to you next time on the Tyler Werner Show, Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show. And, of course, It's where the videos get posted, the YouTube videos. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for the Tyler Werner Show. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll talk to you next time on the Tyler Werner Show.
Hoo-ah!